What would you do if your spouse looked you in the eye and said they wanted a child with their ex? No shame, no hesitation, just cold betrayal. That's what happened to Michael. But he didn't scream or beg. Instead, he crafted a plan so brilliant, it redefined revenge. This isn't the ending you expect. Buckle up for a story of heartbreak, cunning, and a comeback that'll leave you speechless. The Miami skyline glittered beyond the condo's wide windows, casting a warm glow over the dining table where Michael and Sophia sat. The hum of the city, honking cars, distant salsa beats, filtered through the glass, a pulse that matched their vibrant life. Michael, a 32-year-old software engineer, leaned back in his chair, scrolling through his phone, planning their next weekend getaway. Sophia, 30, a marketing manager with a knack for closing deals, poked at her plate of grilled snapper, her movements sharp, deliberate. "Michael, we need to talk," she said, setting her fork down with a clink that cut through the hum. He glanced up, catching the edge in her voice. His thumb paused on the screen, the getaway itinerary forgotten. "What's up?" he asked, voice steady but cautious. Sophia leaned forward, elbows on the table, her posture rigid. "Javier reached out. You know, my ex." The name landed like a stone in still water. Michael's stomach tightened. Javier, the smooth-talking entrepreneur she'd dated years ago, before their 12 years of building a life. Brunches at Ocean Drive, late-night coding sessions he powered through for her, dreams of a family they'd sketched out over coffee. "He wants me to have his kid," Sophia continued, her tone unervingly matter-of-fact. "It's just one child. No big deal. After, we go back to normal." Michael's phone slipped from his hand, hitting the table with a thud. His chest constricted, as if the air had thickened. "You're serious?" he asked, voice low, searching her eyes for a crack, a hint of a joke. None came. Sophia shrugged, picking up her fork again, spearing a piece of fish like they were discussing groceries. "It's not like I'm leaving you. Javier's got money, a plan. He'll handle everything. We'll be fine." The word "we" stung worse than the proposal itself. Michael pushed his chair back, the scrape against the hardwood floor sharp in the silence. "You're my wife, Sophia. My wife. And you're sitting here, calmly telling me you want to sleep with your ex to give him a kid?" His voice rose, not in anger but in disbelief, each word a plea for her to hear how absurd it sounded. She crossed her arms, unfazed. "You're blowing this out of proportion. It's a favor, Michael. Javier needs an heir. It's not about us. It's business." "Business?" He laughed, a short, bitter sound that echoed off the walls. "You think you can break our vows, walk out, and waltz back like nothing happened? That's not how this works." He stood, gripping the table's edge, knuckles whitening. "If you do this, Sophia, you're walking out of this marriage. For good." Her eyes flickered, not with regret but with defiance, a glint that suggested she thought she held all the cards. "You'll get over it," she said, almost flippantly, as if his pain was a minor inconvenience. "You always do." The words sliced deeper than any argument they'd ever had. Michael stared at her, the woman he'd built a life with, the one he'd stayed up late for, coding through exhaustion to secure their future. He saw no trace of that partnership now, only a stranger betting he'd bend. Without another word, he grabbed his jacket from the chair and walked out, the door clicking shut behind him. The Miami night swallowed him, the city's pulse now a mocking reminder of the life he thought they shared. Sophia sat alone at the table, the untouched snapper growing cold. She told herself Michael was overreacting, that he'd cool off and see her side. Javier's call had stirred something in her. Nostalgia, maybe, or the thrill of being needed by someone who once lit up her world. She didn't want to lose Michael, but she believed she could have both. Javier's fleeting spark and Michael's steady anchor. She was wrong. Across town, Michael walked along the boardwalk, the ocean's rhythm steadying his racing thoughts. His phone buzzed, work emails, always piling up, but he ignored them. Sophia's confidence, her casual dismissal of their bond, burned in his mind. He wasn't a man prone to rage. He solved problems, wrote code that untangled chaos. And now, as the neon lights of South Beach flickered in the distance, he began to see this betrayal as a problem to solve. Not with screams or pleas, but with something sharper, colder, final. The Miami sun beat down on the South Beach cafe where Sophia sat, stirring a latte she hadn't touched. Across from her, Javier leaned back in his chair, scrolling through his phone, his attention elsewhere. The ocean breeze carried the chatter of tourists, but the table felt like a vacuum, devoid of warmth. Sophia had expected a rush of old feelings, Javier's charisma had once swept her off her feet, but his voice was clipped, transactional. I need an heir, Sophia. My legacy. You in or out? She shifted, her fingers tightening around the coffee cup. I'm here, aren't I? She said, forcing a smile, hoping for a glimpse of the man she'd once loved. But Javier's eyes stayed on his screen, scheduling a meeting with his lawyer. Good. We'll set up the terms. No complications, no strings. You do this, I'll make sure you're covered financially. His words were cold, a contract, not a connection. Sophia nodded, ignoring the knot in her gut, convincing herself this was about closure, not betrayal. Back at their condo, Michael hadn't spoken to Sophia in days. He moved through their shared space like a ghost, answering her attempts at small talk with curt nods. She mistook his silence for sulking, certain he'd cave as he always had, after late-night arguments, missed anniversaries, her sharp words. But Michael wasn't sulking. He was planning. At night, while Sophia slept, he sat at his desk, laptop glowing, researching. He met with a divorce attorney in a discreet downtown office, signing papers to protect his assets. He backed up every text Sophia sent Javier, every call log, building a quiet case. His software engineer's mind, wired for precision, turned their marriage into a puzzle he was dismantling piece by piece. Sophia, oblivious, grew bolder. She met Javier again, this time at his sleek penthouse. The view of Biscayne Bay stretched endlessly, but the space felt sterile, transactional. Javier handed her a stack of documents, legal agreements about custody, finances, timelines. Sign here, he said, pointing, not looking up from his tablet. Sophia hesitated, her pen hovering. This feels so formal, she said, her voice small. Javier didn't flinch. It's practical. I don't want drama. You give me a kid, I handle the rest. Her heart sank, but pride kept her from walking away. She signed, telling herself Michael would understand, that their life would snap back into place once this was done. Meanwhile, Michael's plan took shape. He contacted a realtor, listing their condo without Sophia's knowledge, leveraging a clause in their joint ownership that allowed unilateral action in extreme circumstances. He scoured job boards, landing an interview with a tech startup in Austin, a city buzzing with opportunity. He didn't yell or confront Sophia. Instead, he documented her absences, her late-night calls with Javier, each piece a brick in the wall he was building between them. His silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. One evening, Sophia returned to the condo, expecting Michael to be hunched over his laptop, as usual. Instead, she found him packing a single suitcase. Where are you going? She asked, her voice sharp with surprise. He zipped the bag, his movements calm, deliberate. Business trip, he said, not meeting her eyes. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. Sophia frowned, sensing a shift, but too wrapped up in her own plans to press. You'll be back soon, right? She asked, more to reassure herself than him. Michael's lips twitched, not quite a smile. Sure, he said, and walked out. In Austin, Michael aced his interview, impressing the startup CEO with his coding portfolio and quiet intensity. They offered him a senior role on the spot, with a relocation package. He accepted, signing a lease for a modest apartment near downtown. Back in Miami, he finalized the condo sale, redirecting his share of the funds to a new account Sophia couldn't touch. He wasn't running. He was rebuilding, step by calculated step, while Sophia chased a fantasy that was already unraveling. Javier's calls grew infrequent, his texts curt. At their next meeting, he barely acknowledged her, focused on a business deal in Dubai. Sophia sat across from him, her stomach churning. What happens after this, Javier? She asked, her voice betraying a flicker of hope. He looked up, annoyed. After? You go back to your life. I get my kid. That's the deal. The words landed like a slap, stripping away the nostalgia she'd clung to. She'd gambled her marriage on a man who saw her as a means to an end, and the weight of that choice began to press down. Sophia stood outside the Miami condo, key in hand, heart pounding with rehearsed apologies. She'd spent weeks with Javier, chasing a fading illusion, but now she was ready to mend things with Michael. The key didn't turn. She tried again, the lock unyielding. A plain envelope taped to the door caught her eye. Inside, a single note in Michael's precise handwriting, condo sold. Good luck. Her breath caught, panic rising like a tide. She banged on the door, calling his name, but only silence answered. Across town, Michael was already in Austin, his new apartment sparse but functional, a laptop on the table humming with code for his startup. He'd sold the condo in a swift, legal move, using a clause Sophia had overlooked in their ownership agreement. His share of the sale was wired to a new account, untouchable by her. He'd resigned from his Miami job, cutting ties with the life they'd built. His phone buzzed, Sophia's number, but he let it ring, his focus on a pitch deck for investors. This wasn't escape, it was reinvention. Sophia, frantic, dialed Michael's number again. Voicemail. She tried his office, only to hear, he no longer works here. Her emails bounced, social media accounts vanished. She drove to their favorite cafe, hoping to find a trace of him, but the barista only shrugged. Haven't seen him in weeks. Desperation clawed at her. She called Javier, seeking reassurance, but his line went to voicemail too. His last text, sent days ago, was curt, busy, talk later. The truth hit hard. Javier had used her, and now she was losing Michael too. In Austin, Michael's startup gained traction. He'd partnered with a small team, coding late into the night, fueled by purpose. Investors were circling, impressed by his prototype, a sleek app streamlining remote work. He didn't think about Sophia, not directly. His pain had hardened into resolve, each line of code a step toward a future she couldn't touch. He'd hired a private investigator in Miami, quietly gathering evidence of Sophia's meetings with Javier, ensuring his legal moves were airtight. Divorce papers were drafted, ready to serve when the time came. Sophia, back in Miami, pieced together fragments of Michael's disappearance. A neighbor mentioned seeing movers. A bank statement showed half their savings gone. She confronted their realtor, who confirmed the sale but refused to share Michael's new address. He was clear, no forwarding. The realtor said, her tone final. Sophia's world tilted. She'd expected Michael to wait, to forgive, as he always had. But this was different. He wasn't hiding. He was erasing her. She moved into a cramped studio apartment, the only place she could afford on her own. Nights were sleepless, her phone glowing with unanswered texts to Michael. Please, let's talk. No reply. Javier, meanwhile, had vanished entirely, his penthouse dark when she drove by. A colleague let slip that he'd left for Dubai, chasing a new deal, his interest in Sophia discarded like a closed contract. She sat alone, scrolling through old photos of her and Michael, salsa dancing, laughing at a food truck festival, each image a reminder of what she'd gambled away. Michael, in Austin, wasn't celebrating. His victory was quiet, deliberate. He'd secured a second round of funding, his startup's logo now plastered on tech blogs. At a local coffee shop, he met Elena, a graphic designer hired to refine the app's interface. Their conversations, initially about work, turned personal, shared laughs over bad sci-fi movies, debates about Austin's best taco truck. Elena's kindness, her respect for his vision, felt like sunlight after a storm. He didn't tell her about Sophia, not yet. But he felt something shift, a lightness he hadn't known in years. Sophia's desperation peaked. She found a post on a tech forum mentioning Michael's startup, pinpointing Austin. She booked a flight, clutching a faint hope of reconciliation. At the airport, she rehearsed her plea. She'd admit her mistake, beg for a second chance. But deep down, a nagging fear grew. Michael wasn't the man who'd wait anymore. As her plane touched down in Texas, Michael was pitching to a room of investors, his voice steady, his life moving forward without her. Sophia stepped off the plane in Austin, her stomach churning with a mix of dread and determination. The Texas heat hit her as she exited the airport, clutching a crumpled note with the address of a tech conference where Michael was rumored to be speaking. She'd spent the flight scripting her apology, imagining him softening, maybe even embracing her. But the silence of the past weeks, his unanswered calls, the sold condo, his vanished presence, gnawed at her confidence. She hailed a cab, her hands trembling as she gave the driver the venue's address. In downtown Austin, Michael stood on a stage, his voice steady as he demoed his startup's app to a packed room of investors and tech enthusiasts. The screen behind him flashed metrics, user growth, retention rates, proof of his new life's momentum. Offstage, Elena watched, taking notes for a redesign, her presence a quiet anchor. Michael's pitch ended to applause, and he stepped into the crowd, shaking hands, his focus sharp. He didn't know Sophia was minutes away, her cab weaving through traffic. Sophia arrived at the conference center, her heart racing as she scanned the bustling lobby. She spotted Michael near a booth, surrounded by attendees, his posture relaxed but commanding. For a moment, she froze, struck by how different he seemed. Not broken, but rebuilt. Elena stood nearby, handing him a water bottle, their easy rapport a silent blow. Sophia pushed through the crowd, her voice cutting through the chatter. Michael, heads turned. He looked up, his expression hardening, not with anger but with a calm resolve that chilled her. What are you doing here? He asked, stepping away from the group. His tone was even, but his eyes held no warmth. Sophia's rehearsed words faltered. I need to talk. Please, just 5 minutes. The crowd parted, sensing the tension. Elena stayed close, her hand brushing Michael's arm, a subtle signal of support. Sophia's gaze flicked to her, a surge of jealousy tightening her throat. Who's she? She demanded, her voice louder than intended. Michael didn't flinch. This is Elena. She's part of my team. His words were deliberate, cutting off any deeper explanation. Sophia's hands clenched. Michael, I messed up. Javier was a mistake. He used me, and I was stupid to think it meant anything. But you and me, we're not done. We can fix this. Her voice cracked, tears welling, but Michael's face remained unreadable. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You chose Javier. You walked away from us. I warned you, Sophia, there's no coming back. Each word landed like a stone, final and unyielding. Elena stayed silent, her presence a steady contrast to Sophia's unraveling. You don't mean that, Sophia pleaded, grabbing his sleeve. 12 years, Michael. That has to mean something. He gently pulled his arm free. It did, until you decided it didn't. The conference hum resumed around them, but for Sophia, the world narrowed to Michael's retreating figure as he turned back to his booth. Elena followed, her hand on his shoulder, a gesture that spoke of trust Sophia had forfeited. Sophia stumbled outside, the Austin sun blinding. She collapsed onto a bench, her phone slipping from her hand. She'd come to reclaim her life, but Michael had built a new one, and she wasn't in it. Back in Miami, Sophia's studio apartment felt like a cage. She'd lost her job, her focus shattered, her performance tanked. Friends stopped calling, tired of her endless spiral. She scrolled through social media, torturing herself with glimpses of Michael's life. A photo of him and Elena at a food truck festival, laughing over tacos, sliced deeper than any argument. Another post showed his startup's logo on a billboard, a symbol of his triumph. Sophia's texts to him went unanswered, her emails marked as spam. Javier, too, was gone, his Dubai deal closed, his number disconnected. Sophia's nights blurred into days. She replayed her choices, ignoring Michael's warning, signing Javier's contract, believing she could juggle 2 worlds. Now, she had neither. One evening, she found an old email from Michael, sent years ago after a fight. We're stronger than this. The memory burned. She'd taken his loyalty for granted, assuming he'd always wait. But Michael hadn't waited. He'd moved forward, leaving her to face the emptiness of her decisions. Sophia sat on a park bench in Miami, the late autumn breeze stirring leaves across the grass. Her phone lay dormant in her lap, its screen blank. No notifications, no replies. Months had passed since her confrontation with Michael at the Austin conference, and the silence that followed had become a weight she couldn't shake. She'd returned to a city that no longer felt like home, her studio apartment a stark reminder of the life she'd dismantled. Today, she clutched a newspaper, its text section open to a headline. Austin startup secures $10 million in funding. Michael's company logo was splashed across the page. In Austin, Michael stood in his startup's new office, a converted warehouse buzzing with coders and designers. He reviewed a product roadmap, his pen tapping rhythmically as Elena presented a new app interface. Their partnership had grown beyond work. She'd become his confidant, her steady presence grounding him. They'd spent evenings exploring Austin's live music scene, sharing quiet moments that felt effortless, unlike the strain of his past with Sophia. His divorce papers, served weeks ago, sat signed in a drawer, finalizing his freedom. He didn't gloat. He simply moved forward. Sophia, meanwhile, grappled with a new reality. Her marketing career had stalled, her focus fractured. She'd been passed over for promotions. She took a temp job, answering phones at a small firm, the monotony a stark contrast to her old life of pitches and power lunches. She avoided social media, unable to stomach more glimpses of Michael's success or his bond with Elena. One night, sorting through a box of old keepsakes, she found a USB drive labeled Our Plans. It held spreadsheets from years ago, Michael's budgeting for their dream house, their shared vision for a family. She plugged it in, the files flickering on her laptop, and wept, the loss cutting fresh. She tried reaching out one last time, handwriting a letter to Michael's old office, hoping it would be forwarded. I know I broke us, she wrote, her pen shaking. I chose wrong, and I'll carry that forever. I just need you to know I'm sorry. She mailed it, but weeks passed with no response. The letter, she later learned, was returned, address unknown. Michael wasn't hiding. He'd simply built a life where she no longer existed. In Austin, Michael and Elena attended a charity gala, their startup sponsoring a coding boot camp for underprivileged youth. Michael spoke briefly, thanking the crowd, his voice carrying a quiet pride. Elena squeezed his hand, her support unspoken but clear. Afterward, they walked along Lady Bird Lake, the city's lights reflecting on the water. You're doing good things, Elena said, her words simple but weighted. Michael nodded, a faint smile breaking through. Feels like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be. Sophia's days grew quieter. She started therapy, a small step toward untangling her regret. Her therapist pushed her to face the truth. She'd valued nostalgia over loyalty, chasing a fantasy with Javier while dismissing Michael's devotion. The sessions were grueling, forcing her to confront her pride, her choices. She began volunteering at a community center, teaching kids basic marketing skills, seeking purpose in small acts. It didn't erase the past, but it gave her moments of clarity, a faint path forward. One afternoon, Sophia passed a bookstore displaying Michael's startup in a business magazine. She bought a copy, reading about his journey, how he'd turned betrayal into fuel, building a company that empowered remote workers worldwide. The article mentioned Elena, describing her as a key collaborator, her designs integral to the app's success. Sophia set the magazine down, her hands steady for the first time in months. She didn't cry. Instead, she whispered, "You deserve this," to no one, the words a release. Michael never spoke of Sophia, not to Elena, not to his team. His past with her was a closed chapter, its lessons etched, but no longer binding. He proposed to Elena that winter, on a quiet trail under Austin's starry sky, her acceptance sealing a future untainted by old wounds. Sophia, miles away, kept volunteering, her life simpler, humbler. She'd lost her anchor, her home, but gained a painful truth. Loyalty is a currency you only spend once. Michael's victory wasn't in punishing her, it was in thriving without her, proving his worth in a life she'd never touch again.